My name is John Hare, and this is another harebrained story. Back in, I think it was about the early 90s, probably 1991, I was skiing in Aspen, Colorado, and I somehow came across a guy that we ended up bumping into each other in the hill, probably literally, and ended up going skiing together. And back in those days, the skis that people skied on were straight and very tall. I wasn't a great skier, but the guy that I met on the hill was a very good skier. As a matter of fact, he used to be part of the American ski team. So we're skiing, and I'm having a terrible time trying to keep up with him. And he noticed that I was obviously having trouble keeping up, and he said, "You should really try out these skis that have just come out, and they're shaped skis. In other words, they are shaped like an hourglass. Very different from the skis that people have been skiing on for years and years and years." And they really did eventually change the industry. And so I went down and I rented a pair of those skis. They were just new, and Aspen, obviously one of the biggest ski areas in North America, had them probably before anybody else. And so I tried these skis, and all of a sudden I'm skiing way, way better. Not that I could keep up to my friend that was, obviously a lot better than I was, but anyway, I ended up buying those skis, and I brought them back to Winnipeg. Excuse me. They were rental skis, so they had adjustable bindings. And in Winnipeg at that time, we had a ski shop called Gord's Ski Shop. And Gord Reed, who owned the shop, was actually a good friend. One of the reasons we're actually skiing in Aspen is that every year Gord would take a group of people that were his customers to go skiing in Aspen. And he'd basically give lessons as he was skiing with them. And, it was a great way for him to get down there and have a bunch of people that were from Manitoba learn how to ski in a really good spot to ski. So anyway, we went on that trip with him a few times, not in the van with him, but we would go on our own and hook up with him, because we knew Gord otherwise just, from Winnipeg, and he was actually a good friend of mine, of ours, just on a personal basis. But so anyway, I bring these skis back from Aspen, and I get talking to Gord. I said, you really should learn about these skis. And one thing about Gord Reed, he was a traditionalist. Gord was not a big guy. He was little, but he was sort of round, and he skied on skis that were like twice his length, and was a great skier. But it was all, in those days, how you skied was technique. And a lot of people ski a week a year, and so they don't have a lot of time to learn the technique over the years. And so these shape skis, the hourglass shaped skis, all of a sudden made it way easier to turn those skis. So I said, "Gord, you really should try these things out." And he was just, "Oh, come on, there's no way, the traditional way is the way to do it." Eventually I convinced him. He took those skis out to La Riviere, which is a little ski hill about an hour and a half drive west of Winnipeg. And so tried them out, came back, and he couldn't believe how easy they were to ski on. And really that was sort of the initialization of those skis into Manitoba, at least. And let's face it, now everybody's skiing on shaped skis. And I think the reason that the ski industry, the people who were making the skis at the time, realized they had to do something, and these skis were probably the result, is that was about the time when snowboarding was just starting. And one thing about snowboarding is it was way easier to learn how to snowboard than it was to learn how to ski and to do it well. So in other words, 3 days of learning how to snowboard, and you could get down the hill and not do too badly. That wasn't the way it was with these big, tall, straight skis. And so the ski industry, to their credit, came out with these shaped skis, which made it a whole lot easier. Anyway, I like to think that I was, sort of part of the reason that those skis got accepted here in Manitoba, and probably the guy who was the leading skier in Manitoba, and probably the proponent of a lot of us that learned how to ski in Manitoba, was Gord Reed. He got on those skis and really liked them, and I think that probably was a reason that skiing kept going and actually gained momentum, because now you didn't have to spend as much time and effort to learn how to ski. It made skiing a lot easier. So my harebrained story, Gut Fyx yourself.